Yes. And a very good evening to you, and welcome to today's edition of Politics 101 on a Wednesday evening. Well, a lot has been happening over the last week. We're going to get behind the news. Let's see here. President Ali really took a big swing against civil society. I saw some organizations included there, like the Ursuline Sisters and the Guyana Society for the Blind and so on. And President Ali took a big swing at them and said they all have an agenda against his government, and he and the Attorney General and the Minister of Education, and I think one of the other ministers, they all went after these organizations for pointing out that the government has been overreaching over the last week. We're going to talk about that. On Monday, GCOM started house-to-house registration, well, against the advice of the opposition commissioners and against the opposition PNC, who have been calling for what a new voters list. And they are concerned that this house-to-house registration falls short of their demands. We are going to be talking about, and former opposition leader Joseph Harmon tendered his resignation as a member of parliament this past week. Of course, we are going to get into that. And of course, the big news from last week was the way in which the government used its parliamentary majority, to push through its nominee, its parliamentary nominee for the Natural Resource Fund. Quite a thing there, because the government nominated 3 people. 2 of them were former PNC, or maybe PNC, we don't know. It appears as though they're former PNC. And then the opposition nominated among, I think, Professor Clive Thomas, Elson Lowe, Dr. Vincent Adams, and Christopher Ram, who was. So here you have the government nominating a couple of PNC or ex-PNC people, and here is the opposition nominating a man, Christopher, my friend, Brother Christopher, who has been, in fairness to him, has been critical of the government on some selective issues, but generally has not challenged the legitimacy of the government or has not challenged the authoritarianism of the government. He doesn't go there. But he was nominated by the opposition. Oh boy, it's Guyana. So good evening to all of you, and welcome. Welcome to Politics 101. We have our team tonight, and we're going to dig deep into these issues. We're going to get behind the news, as we would say. We have a lineup. Our usual commentators. Last week we missed Adam Harris behind the news, but he's back this week. So we have Brother Adam. Adam, good night and welcome to Politics 101. We have Tacuma Ogunseye.
Thank you for welcoming me.
Thank you. You were missing in action last week. Brother Tacuma Ogunseye.
Yes, I had.
Quiet, Adam.
No, I was saying that I had another appointment and I indicated that I couldn't make it.
Yes. Brother Andrew did pass that on, but you're a favorite area when you're not around with your, and you're not around with Dr. Henry Jeffrey. You know what I mean? Dr. Jeffrey gets going, and
all right.
Tacuma Ogunseye, who has become a fixture now on our weekly programs. Welcome, Brother Tacuma. And Mr. Mark Benschop, who has been warned to stay away from because he, along with his comrades, Sherrod Duncan, Tacuma, Kedaki Amsterdam, Rickford Bork, if I join with them, they will lead me astray because they're going on bad online. And I'm risking my reputation tonight and risking my show getting kicked off. I have it with Mark Benschop. Mark, welcome to Politics 101. And I hold you. I've already given you your appearance fee. So
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. David Hines, and good evening to your listeners as well. And it's good to see Tacuma Ogunseye. And I'm not too comfortable being in the company of Adam Harris, but I'm ready to go.
Gentlemen, it's been quite a week of news. And let's start with this Natural Resource Fund and this 5-member committee. As far as I understand it, and Adam, you are more versed on these kinds of things because you cover them day to day. There are 5 members of this committee. The Parliament names 1, the private sector names 1, and the President has 3. And so for the legislation does not make an automatic allowance for a nominee from the opposition. But apparently, the opposition felt that the government would have been reasonable and allow them to name the nominee from the parliament. In fact, the PNC had said they weren't going to participate, but the AFC said it would participate. And then Leader Norton said that they have rethought the position and that they will participate because they feel that they need to be at the table. And so they participated. In the end, the government got its way with Dunstan Barrow, who a former MP and a CEO of Guy Mine, got their way by nominating him, and the opposition walked out of Parliament. Let me start with you. Was the opposition correct in participating in that process?
That's me.
Yes, for you. Yes, you. I mean,
yeah. Yes, they had a right to participate. The president has always been talking about one Guyana and inclusiveness. The opposition has also been saying, look, we represent 49% of the people of this country. And to exclude us is to exclude 49% of the country. So you can't be talking about one Guyana. However, on Sunday at his press conference, when Marcel Thomas asked the president a question, you know, I listened to the tape again today to make sure that I heard right. The president is saying quite clearly that he will have nothing to do with the opposition. His words were, those people, they wanted to steal the democracy and they wanted to do this. We should get rid of them. We should ignore them. That's his position on the opposition, which is something that I will have to take up. Because if you're saying that you're going to run this country minus 49% of the population, then don't talk to me about one Guyana. They should have participated, and they did. They have signaled to the world what the government is all about. You talk about the 1-seat majority. I mean, if the parliament is going to submit some names, then both sides should sit and agree. If the PPP decides that, look, we want Dunstan Barrow, and the opposition says, hey, we think we should have 1 or 3 people, Vincent Adams and all of these, and you ignore them, it's just as if the government is also appointing its nominee. So you said the president got 3, the president got 4. And civil society probably got 1. And that is not what democracy is about. It isn't about that at all. Democracy isn't about, and I was on this program with Henry Jeffrey, and he talked about the winner take all politics. Well, if you're going to take all, then there is no need for an opposition in parliament. You don't need to, because you have decided that, hey, these are people you should get rid of. Fair enough.
Tacuma, let me bring you in here because you've been around long in party politics, and you are quite aware of the dilemma that political parties face when they're dealing with authoritarian governments. Do you participate or do you not participate? I remember your party, the WP and the PPP, having a big fallout around the 1980 elections because your party felt that elections would have been rigged, and so you boycotted. The PPP made the argument that the PNC is making now, which is that you have to be at the table. So it's a dilemma. I mean, you're saying that this natural resource fund is illegal. It was illegally passed. You're challenging it. But then do you go to the table? And I think that's the dilemma. Brother Andrew, if you have the audio in that, we're going to play it later. The reference there to this question from Marcel. So yes, Brother Ogunseye, do you think the government should have participated? I mean, the opposition.
Okay. You see, it depends upon what the opposition wanted to achieve. We know the PPP. We know what they was likely to do. We know our position on the fund, the way in which they rode the thing through Parliament. We, as you quite correctly said, raised the question of its illegality. So you got a dilemma. On the one hand, you're arguing that this thing was done illegal. On the other, you're also arguing that it was dictatorial. And then on the other hand, you're participating, Now, I don't know. I know that the AFC had indicated that they're willing to name a nominee. I read somewhere that a PNC overseas group had argued that the party should participate. We know that the PNC position was non-participation. The only reasonable conclusion I could come to is that Mr. Norton and the PNC had a dilemma to decide whether they were going to work with a divided opposition or whether they're going to work with a united opposition, whether they will make a concession to the pressures that they're getting from the North American group and to show flexibility. And I suspect that is probably what drove him and the PNC, to participation. But you can't have cake and bake. I mean, since I hear the name Barrow, Dunson Barrow, and I saw the other nominees that the PPP put there, I know they were playing games with the PNC. And if anybody look carefully since 92, look where the African elements who rise to some prominence in the PPP came from. Sam Hines came from Region 10. The current Prime Minister came from Region 10. Dunson Barrows from Region 10. He have always been playing ball with the PPP even when he went with the PNC. So as soon as I saw his name, I knew that he would have been the chosen nominee. I mean, one don't have to be politically extraordinarily bright in Guyana to read through some of this, because the PPP, if you follow carefully the line of march as it relates to Region 10, that is their hunting ground, okay, to resurrect African persons to play the game with them. So as soon as I saw Barrow, I knew that the other candidates ain't getting anywhere. The PPP is being with the PPP, and the PPP will do exactly as they did. But my personal position is that I would not have participated, because for me, you have to work down the dynamics of engagement. And you have to look for outcome. And you have to avoid a conception in the popular mind that the PPP and Jagdeo has consistently outsmarted the opposition. And I think they walk into the Jagdeo trap. And Ali, break the neck, as was expected. And I think that, they have to be careful. You see, you have to be careful that you don't try to fight for short-term gains and snatch at everything that looks like it's a carrot, when in fact it is not a carrot. And my position is that they ought not to. The PNC was poorly advised to change the position. And I personally believe it was better for them if the AFC went one way and they went the other way, because there's no way, the PPP would have conceded the seat anyhow. So there's no way you having anybody at the table to listen, to represent, or anything. That was off the cards. So you got nothing for it, but look stupid.
Mark Benschop, you've heard Ogun, you've heard Adam. I put the same question to you, and you can respond or elaborate on anything that the other two brothers have raised.
All right, just a quick correction, and thanks for having me on your show, David, and good evening to all of your listeners as well. A correction, something that Ogunseye did say, and it's good to see Mr. Ogunseye. I haven't seen him in quite some time. He said that Sam Hines came from Region 10. Sam Hines walked from Maikoni to Region 10, and the people of Linden rescued Sam Hines. So Sam Hines is not originally from Linden. He got rescued by the people in Region 10. I agree with some of the things that Mr. Ogunseye said. I am of the view that the coalition is sending mixed messages to its support base. 1 minute they give the impression that it is an illegitimate government. This bill was illegally passed, which is true. And then they want a chair at the table to go and sit down and discuss and to be a part of and so forth. It's very confusing. And so 1 minute they are going to have a representative, knowing very well that the PPP is going to outsmart them. Because, whilst these guys in the opposition continue to play dotish politics, as I say, while the PPP seem to be advanced in its politics. Mind you, they're not, but that's the appearance. It is because of the dotish sort of politics these guys in the opposition are playing. And this is not just confined to PNC, it's the AFC as well. And, the fact that the AFC said that they're going to nominate somebody, and then the PNC said they're not going to nominate somebody, and then next morning we read that the PNC is going to nominate somebody, and then I don't know what's going on. They're sending mixed messages to their support base. They should not have been part of that table. There's nothing to discuss there with the PPP. The PPP doesn't believe in this one Guyana stuff. It was just basically a show so that they can say to persons in the international arena that they had a democratic process, and this is what they arrived at. They chose Dunstan Barrow. I expressed the same sentiments as Mr. Ogunseye with Mr. Dunstan Barrow without personally attacking him. He has been out of politics for over 20-something years. He has not participated in any form of PNC politics whatsoever. And so he is set there not to represent the interest of the coalition, PNC, APNU, or whatever. He is there as a window dressing for the PPP, so that the PPP can say, hey, look what, we have one of their guys with us. He's a former PNC. He's a former CEO of Lin Mine or wherever it is, somewhere there. That is what they're playing. They're playing games with the opposition. Whilst those in the opposition are sitting back and giving this impression that they have the best strategy and their strategy and they know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. And the PPP is making a mockery of them because they're too divided. I would not have gone to the table.
Yeah, Adam, you, I think, agree in essence with the other two brothers, but you disagree on participation. Would you like to rebut anything that they have said or to add anything to your original remarks?
Yeah, I want to make the point that, look, if you're the opposition, you have a constituency. If you stay away, your constituency is not going to be heard or represented. And based on that, okay, we're coming forward with our support base to have meaningful participation. I think that was the reason behind it. Brother Ogunseye made the point that, yes, I heard that the overseas-based chapter said, look, participate. The people in the diaspora really, really have a say in the politics of this country. Both the PNC and the PPP and the AFC go to the diaspora from time to time. Aubrey Norton is currently there. So whenever these people go, you talk to the diaspora, you shouldn't ignore them when they make a recommendation. And if they recommended, look, go to the table, I can understand the PNC saying, all right, we'll go to the table. And they did.
No, but Adam, who is disagreeing with that? Nobody's saying that the overseas-based folks don't have a say into things. I haven't, Tacuma hasn't, and I'm sure Dr. Hines didn't, right? But to go at a table, knowing very well that you're wasting your time, wasting your energy, wasting your supporters' time, just upping their blood level and their anxiety, knowing very well that they're not going to get anywhere, knowing that the PPP is using them for public relations stunt and photo op and these sort of things. Why go? Find something else to do with their time. That's my position. It's a waste of time to go to sit and discuss anything with the PPP at this point in time. They're not serious about business.
Mark, I have sympathy with your position and Ogun's position because I come from that strand of our politics that you really have to face down authoritarian governments. But I think Adam is raising the question of tactics. I think he's basically saying that from a tactical standpoint, he thinks that they should go. And as I said in my introduction, it's a dilemma that parties that are dealing with authoritarian governments have to deal with. And I don't think there is any right or wrong, but like I said, I'm in sympathy with you and Ogun's position. If you were interviewing me and you were asking me if they should go, I would say they should not have gone. But I am cognizant and I'm also sympathetic with the tactical standpoint, tactical position that Adam is saying here. My suspicion is that it's not so much the overseas people. I think it's the AFC that said it was going, that in a sense pulled the PNC in that direction. But I think it shows the lack of coordination within the opposition, which I think is really hurting us. Let me throw this up. Look, we have a winner-take-all system in which the opposition is going to win nothing unless the government is charitable to them. They're not going to win anything within the formal system, no matter what we say, right? Our experience has shown that. Unless the government is going to be charitable, you're going to get nothing. Or if the government is up to tricks, it may throw a bone to you. But in the winner-take-all system, along with a rampant domineering PPP, you are not going to win anything within the system. It means, therefore, that the struggle has to be outside the system. You either go to the streets and struggle there, or you struggle at the level of the workers within the trade unions, strikes and so on and so forth, which means the political parties have to get into alliances with the rebel trade unionists, or in our case now, external forces bring the two sides to the table, or you use the courts. Those are your options outside of the process. Opposition is not going on the streets. The trade unions are timid, and I'm not going to get in trouble here because Brother Ogun made that point, and Ian Lincoln has this debate going on. But I think the trade unions have gotten timid. Courts, of course, we've seen where the courts have been, on how the courts are operating, and the external forces are given wings here and there, but clearly they're not ready to slap sanctions, for example, on the PPP. Where does that leave the opposition? And I'm throwing that out to you guys. Where does that leave the opposition? Mark, I'll start with you.
I mean, it leaves the opposition in a very weak position. I don't feel that any strong opposition should sit and wait and decide on external forces to say what they should do, when they should do, or whatever. But of course, it makes them look good that when they tell their support base that this is what external forces want us to do, they don't want us to protest, they want us to wait. And so it's a lame duck excuse, right? Those folks in the opposition should do what is necessary in order to break the backs of the PPP. Are they doing it? No, they're not doing it. At the end of the day, their support base continue to suffer. I do think that they're playing this sort of hold me, lose me politics that takes their support base nowhere, that does nothing good for the country. And I don't know what else to say other than if I run into 100 persons, almost 75% of them are saying they're fed up with the politics in Guyana. They need the people who are in the opposition, who have been elected to represent their interest, to stand up and represent their interest. Stop with the lame duck excuses. Stop cooperating with the PPP because the PPP doesn't want anything to do with the opposition unless they can use the opposition for photo op. Irfan Ali just the other day said that he doesn't believe in power sharing. What power sharing? The only people that they're going to share power with is the people of Guyana, which is rather infantile, but not surprising coming from Irfan Ali. Look at what the mixed signal that the AFC is sending. The AFC, as part of an opposition, is saying why? Something totally different from the PNC. The PNC had to play catch up to agree with the AFC to say that they're going to nominate someone. And it looks as though they just rushed and pick names out of a bag as quickly as possible to put up there, knowing very well that the PPP would not have accepted Christopher Ram, they would not have accepted Dr. Clive Thomas, or even that youngster, Mr. Elson Lowe. And I don't know what signal the PNC or the APNU, the coalition is sending to its support base. I just don't know. They need to get back on their table, get seats on their table instead of rushing to grab a seat on another man's table who doesn't want anything to do with them, who continue to use them and abuse them. Go back to your table, sit and discuss real strategy as to how they're going to confront the illegitimate PPP regime. If they don't do that, CAT is going to continue to eat their dinner and they're going to continue this in-house fighting amongst each other.
Outspoken there, Mark Benschop, really taking the opposition to task. Brother Ogun, you heard my formulation, and I'm basically saying there is very little space left for the opposition to do anything. What's your take on that?
I fully agree with you. I mean, we have came to that position as a WPA years ago that the winner-take-all system doesn't allow for any meaningful participation for half of the country. It's really an exclusionary system. It is worse in the context of the last elections and the PPP's very clear position. It will do no business with the opposition until the opposition accept that they were legally and constitutionally elected. So you're not dealing even with the whole engagement and the problems that the Constitution creates in the body politics. You're actually now dealing with a political attitude, which is not constitutional, but political, saying, look, I don't care how much people you represent. You say I am an illegal government. I accuse you of trying to rig the elections. I believe my government is the legal government elected by the people. You disagree. Until you could bite the bullet and to accept that reality, no business, despite what the Constitution says. Now, that is a declaration of war. In simple terms, there's a declaration of war for an opposition. We know that in Guyana, we have had a lot of controversy over elections, where opposition carried the government, filed petition to go to court to get these things resolved. But despite the accusations, opposition bite the bullet, recognize the government, enter parliament, and abide with the Constitution and do business. But on this occasion, the PPP have declared war on the opposition. We're going to destroy you. Now the opposition has objectively little space. You have to begin to fight the PPP the way that the PPP respects. The PPP doesn't respect you engage in rhetoric. The PPP doesn't respect you trying to make the system work at this point in time because they don't want the system to work. What the opposition seems to be doing is trying to create a false environment that, yes, we have problems, but the democratic system could work. The PPP say, no, we freeze democracy. Until you do what we ask, we freeze this thing. Therefore, the opposition has to mobilize its people. I'm not pressing them too hard here because, as I said on other programs, you cannot rule out the pandemic and the effects the pandemic has on political mobilization. I, as a political activist, I'm not certain whether I would want to call Guyanese out in the context of the pandemic. But if the people came out on their own spontaneously, fully support. The point I'm trying to make is that I am a bit sympathetic with the opposition in the context of the pandemic. But let us say we didn't have to deal with the pandemic. And they didn't put from day one the people in the streets and make this country ungovernable. I would be severely critical of them. But I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that one of the major factors that are influencing the approach to street action is that they probably are not certain how the population will behave in the context of the pandemic. And they may not want to run the risk that if the pandemic gets out of hand, the government could say they are the major contributing factor. So they have a little sympathy for me on that grounds. But on raw politics, okay, the only answer for them to win back space is to make the country ungovernable.
Okay, let me ask you this particular question before I go to Adam. You mentioned the pandemic, but do you think that the geopolitics is a factor that is inhibiting the opposition from going to radical street politics?
It may be a factor, but I don't think the opposition could depend on, the opposition should not subject itself. Okay, I'm saying, put it this way. No political force in Guyana could ignore the geopolitics of the region and the fact that you're operating in America's backyard. So I'm saying, while you have to deal with the Americans and be sensitive to some of their objectives and geopolitical objectives and so, at the end of the day, you have a country to govern, or you have a people interest to look after. And your people interest must be more important to you than any ally in the hemisphere interest. And you have to have some clear lines of agreement with the Americans and clear lines of a disagreement with the Americans. And I'm saying that I can't see no justification here. There's a difference between putting your people in the streets and putting your people in the streets and bring down the government. It's two different things.
Right. And that's right.
You don't want to bring change by that means. You want electoral change, but we ain't reached there yet. So for me, I can't see you in any real fundamental contradiction with American hemispheric position.
Well, I was talking about the latter. I wasn't talking about the symbolic putting on the streets, because I was making the point in another program that the oil people, the people who are against the oil contract and so on, they're on the streets. But that doesn't threaten to bring down the government, right? We notice people now protesting the Russian invasion of Ukraine. That doesn't threaten to bring down the government. I'm talking about street protests akin to the ones that Desmond Hoyt mounted 20 odd years ago. Do you think that kind of protest is the foreign forces who have so much invested in Guyana? Do you think they would be saying to the opposition, we're not going to tolerate that?
I really don't know, but I am saying from my position, since I think at the end of the day, they're speaking for me, I'm speaking for WP. At the end of the day, we believe that there should be a national government, there should be a national solution. So any bringing down, even if you bring the PPP down tomorrow, I think you got to offer them a part of the government in order for the country to go forward. Therefore, in the context of that, once we make that clear, okay, it should go on a big way to satisfy the Americans and others that this here, okay, is a solution, okay, that will lead to improvement and real stability in the country, which will more facilitate their economic and financial interests. But more important, for we as a nation, it will strengthen our body politics and put us in a better position to deal with all the internal and external challenges. So for me, I will bring the people to the streets, push the crisis to the point of brink, and let me negotiate something sensible.
Dr. Hines, before you go to Adam, just 30 seconds.
Yes,
Mr. Ogunseye made a point about the street protest and the pandemic, and maybe that's why the leaders of the coalition, they're not bringing the people. Or it's the same argument that I was making on my show for months, that seemed to be a lame excuse, because the very set of people them who are saying that at the pandemic in Guyana and we can't bring the people out, quite a few of them jumped on a plane and head to North America, head to Brooklyn. Hundreds of them participated in the protest in the midst of a pandemic. But they're using the argument of a pandemic against protest in Guyana. I don't know.
Okay, just one clarification. I don't know whether that is the reason. I didn't say that is the reason. I said that's the probable reason. I don't know. I'm not saying that is the reason. They have to speak for themselves on that.
Adam,
Yeah.
does the opposition have political space to win even small victories for their supporters? I mentioned the formal system that they're not going to win anything there unless PPP is charitable or scampi. And so you now have to move outside of that arena to the streets to informal negotiations, which have not been happening. Do you think they have space? Do you think they have the space to mount the kind of opposition that is needed against this runaway government?
You know, I have a problem with bringing people out on the streets for two reasons. One, once the genie comes out of the bottle, it ain't got any going back. Two, the number of guns you got on the streets.
Come on.
Three,
Come on.
the
Come on.
ability of a PPP to infiltrate those very street protests and cause problems. People will get seriously hurt. In addition to that, you will hurt the economy. But let's say everybody prepared to go hungry.
Imagine
The
our
bottom line
enslaved
is
ancestors had that.
All right, Mark. Give Adam a chance.
Imagine. Gosh.
the bottom line is that those things tend to leave some deep scars. I remember 63, 64, when workers came out. That wasn't political as such. And the amount of destruction they caused in Georgetown, fires around, the deep-seated hatred it caused among people of different ethnic group and all of that. I can see that problem becoming even bigger at this time, where we have ethnic insecurity to begin with, we have ethnic distrust. And once the opposition brings out the people, and don't let me fool myself, when you talk about opposition bringing out people, the people listening to this talking about black people coming out on the streets.
Right.
They ain't talking about the Indian supporters or the Amerindian supporters. They're seeing black people coming out. So the reaction is going to be different. Those of the supporters, and no one group can win a clear election. Once you get out there, the opposition, you are going to distance yourself from certain people who may not like the PPP, what they're doing. These people got influence among others who are close to the PPP. I mean, look at Article 13. York Mahadi and them boys. They are having an impact. So I believe that this war, instead of coming out in the street and probably seeing it lead to violence, let us have an effective communication campaign. We can reach a lot of people and we can influence a lot of people. Some of those people we may influence could very well be PPP people who will sit down and say, hey, you know, I mean, you got me feeling uncomfortable. I'm here. These people can blow up. And once they blow up, I am going to get hurt. You had better adjust yourself and all of that. I think that's the way we should go.
Mark Benschop, you have your chance to respond or rebut anything that Adam has said there. And Ogun, I'll also give you a chance to respond to anything that Adam has said there that you wish to. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you. It is precisely what Adam Harris said. All of what he said contribute to where we are today as a people in that country. When the coalition was in office, the PPP never said to their supporters, its supporters, don't go out in front of office of the president. Don't block bridges. Don't burn roads. Don't do this. Don't do that because you're going to be hurt or there are guns out there or how it's going to look and all these things. I rubbish what Adam said. And this is all with due respect. Adam and I go way back. Imagine if our African enslaved ancestors took the same position that Adam is saying out here publicly, where a lot of young people are watching this program and want a way out and see protest as the way to bring any autocratic regime to its knees. Here it is that Adam Harris, a seasoned journalist, is saying that street protest is not the way. There are guns out there and infiltrate this. What if in the civil rights struggles when Africans and other minorities were being slaughtered and hung in the United States of America? What if Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X and Dr. Reverend Jesse Jackson and all these other people, when they were tear gassed and hosed and locked up and so forth? What if they're taking a position that, man, we're going to be hurt. I'm not going out there. We're outgunned. They have dogs chasing the police dogs after us, shooting at us, hanging us, slaughtering us. We're not going to go out there. Maybe if they're taking that position, the civil rights struggle would have still been going on a day like today? What if our African ancestors, people like Kofi and others, have taken the same position that Adam Harris is talking about here, a hands-off approach? And let us find another way. Let us be nice to Massa. Let us hug Massa. Let us kiss Massa. Let us don't take the political battle to Massa. Our ancestors, slavery would not have been abolished. We would have still been where we are today. And I'm saying this, that protest doesn't have to be violence. It doesn't mean violence at all. And long gone are those days where excuses like what Adam is talking about, but guns out there and people are going to get hurt. When sacrifices are to be made, of course people will get hurt. Of course people will be jailed. Of course people will be killed. But you know what it's called? Sacrifices. But it's obvious that Adam is not willing to make those sacrifices. And instead, and this is with all due respect, he's finding a bunch of excuses here tonight. Look, I need a water break.
Mark, quickly, I want to make the point.
Sure.
When I said people will get hurt, I wasn't talking about one set of people, the protesters. People on all sides, people in general will be hurt. I lived through 63, I lived through 64, where we had some of the biggest protests this country has ever known. And people got hurt. Not only Black people, not only Indians. People were hurt. And when I said people will get hurt, I am talking about people in general. Once the genie comes out of the bottle, people on every side of the fence will get hurt. That's what I was saying. I also have a problem with street protests in the sense that more often than not, they are disorganized. They would start off as a nice little organized group, and as they swell, they become disorganized and people go their own way and do their own thing. That could be counterproductive. That's what I'm talking about. And Mark is familiar with what I'm talking about. I think he was arrested because of the same thing. Yes, the people came out. Yes, they protested. Yes, they marched. But there were people who went other places outside of the main march. That's all I want to correct you with, Mark.
But Adam, I get your point. But it's unfortunate that some of us have to take that position, and it doesn't sound right. It seems, and we are falling into this trap, this PPP narrative, that because of a majority of the people who support the coalition are of one particular ethnic group, we've got to be careful when they come out to protest, a legitimate protest of their right, that people are going to get hurt. Other people are going to get hurt. What are some of the supporters are going to say about us? Nobody gave a damn when the people were burning roads and burning cars and pelting vehicles with little children inside at Bushlat and West Coast Berbice area, Bad Settlement. Nobody gave a damn about that. Nobody said that other people are going to get hurt. Nurses were hurt. Policemen were hurt. Nobody gave a damn about that. But every time folks in the opposition, whether the coalition or whatever, and primarily persons of African descent, have to go out there to stand up for their right, justifiably so, all manner of excuses, who is going to be hurt, who's not going to be hurt.
Brother Ogun, you've been waiting patiently to come in and to contribute to this discussion.
Okay, in listening to Adam, there's three dimensions of Adam's position, which I want to refer to. Adam's position is the typical conventional politics position, is that, play the politics right down to the election season, and hopefully, if you do good work, you could win the election. So you had there's no need for engaging in street protests. No, but I think we have seen that it took from 92 to 2015 to defeat the PPP electorally, when they didn't have all the money. Now you see, politics have to be seen in context. No two historical positions are the same. But you have to be informed, from the past. If it was difficult to defeat the PPP, okay, when they didn't have access to the kind of oil money, you have to calculate, okay, it is more likely to be much difficult to defeat the PPP electorally with all of this oil money, given the capacity to corrupt and to do all kinds of things. The next aspect Adam concern seems to be the question of that street protest have a potential to degenerate into ethnic violence or physical violence. Now that is always a risk you run with protests. There could be no guarantee that any protest will be 100% peaceful, no part of the world, because how a protest unfolds doesn't only depend upon the protesters. The protesters will go there to begin to conduct themselves properly, operating within the law, but the police could come and break, and engage in violence and force people to react in a certain way. And you have seen it all over the world. So despite that risk, human beings have always had to use that instrument, and even and more so even in democracies, because you can't always wait till 5 years, okay, to affect a condition that is affecting you. You have to, in between the elections, find ways and means to demonstrate your concern and to force the powers that be to alter their behavior. And very often, rhetoric alone don't do it, because the government will say nobody supports you. And in Guyana context, the PPP will say we beat you down that you can't bring out your own people. And your people begin to believe that there's something wrong with us. We can't even come out. I know when they had the problems in 2005, I don't want to call names, but major PNC leaders were afraid of the security force, the black security force, the children. They're afraid that children will shoot them down. So the point I'm making is that there's no guarantee that street protests could be 100% peaceful, but the history of struggle both in Guyana and elsewhere has demonstrated in every democracy. You can't always wait for the election time. There's some work that got to do between elections. And street protests is a very important element in the people stating where they stand, okay, on matters short election time. And in the context of Guyana, we got a more difficult problem, is that the government is contemptuous of us. They believe that they succeed in beating us down. A lot of our people are beginning to believe so. And as an opposition, if you want your people, to come and vote for you, when the next election comes, you got to be combative to inspire them. I have always felt that Corbyn suffered the worst in the 2005 elections. I not to remember these
2006.
2006. One of the things that was facing Corbyn, because I discussed it with him, there was a whole pressure on Corbyn to behave decent, to try to court, votes from outside the constituency. And he had the challenge of the AFC, okay, in the equation. But his major weapon to rally his people was street protest and militancy. But he opted for the non-militant road and go purely electorally, and he almost get wiped out. You see, you have to carry your people with you. You have to understand the historical, cultural orientation of your masses. If you appear as an ineffective leader or ineffective leadership dealing with African people, you get the worst out of them. You get the best out of them when they believe that you're militant and you're fighting their cause. Now, my final point on this is that I think Adam is making a fundamental mistake. No two situations are the same. You can't know beforehand that a protest at a historical moment will be violent or reproduce the same thing as the 64. And I'm saying we have learned, hopefully we have learned over time how to deal with these matters. And I'm not convinced, okay, that a protest, okay, will degenerate to the 60s, because the 60s was not simply an internal struggle. The CIA and all kinds of interests played a role and produced all kinds of dynamics. But I believe indigenously led struggle, okay, with a clear end game of power sharing and shared governance could protect us, okay, from what happened in the 60s. And time is not on our side because PPP getting plenty of money. And elections, votes are bought with money. People are corrupted in the process with money.
And of course, all struggle, all protest, all resistance has to do with the nature of the government, the nature of the regime that you're coming up against. That often the response is not shaped only by those who are resisting, but by those who are governing. And I think that's a very important factor. Adam, you want any last word on this point before we move on?
Yeah. When you go out on the road, what is the objective? Is the objective to get the government to talk to you? Is the objective to get the government out of office? Because don't tell me people gonna go up on the road for nothing. So you're going out there must be an objective. And listening to Mark, I get the impression that, look, when you go out there, you go for everything. Get them out of office. If that's the agenda, I don't know. It can be bitter. It can go back.
I never said that.
No.
You're interpreting that for me. You don't go out there to get them out of office right away, but you constantly go out there and you weaken them. That is what. Weaken them to the point that they will be forced to be out of office at some point in time. That's what
or to govern democratically.
Yeah. But Adam, you see, you're falling into some trap here. There's tons of folks who have gone out and have had peaceful protests, but you haven't mentioned them. You haven't given them kudos, right? But you jump to some Article 13, probably I'm now hearing recently about Article 13, right? About some individuals from Article 13. You're rushing to give them credit as, oh, they're peaceful protesters. They're doing things nicely, right? But they're also doing things conveniently. They went in front of the Russian embassy to protest what's happening all the way in Ukraine. But these are the same people, Yog Mahadir and them, who don't give a damn about things, for the most part, African in nature, that's happening in our country. They travel to Essequibo to protest the murdering of that businessman, Mr. Boston. They travel to West Coast, Berbice, to be part of an interview with the Henry Cousins and all of these things. Did they do that? Did they travel all the way to Linden when the nurses were shut out and all these manner of things? They didn't do it. They come out when it's convenient for them, and they expect people to jump and put them on a mountaintop and praise them. Take Mala, you know what I mean? Look like this Mala, and put it around their neck and say, kudos to you guys. Of course, I give them some credit for doing what they're doing, but I'm not going to rush and put them on no pedestal till on a mountaintop and praise them. No, because when few of us were out in front of the Russian embassy many years ago protesting about an unjust sacking of about 60 plus workers of bauxite through Rousseau. None of these guys were around. Yog Mahadir wasn't around. He was comfortable at GT&T, enjoying himself, enjoying his good relationship and so forth with the PPP. They didn't give a damn about us. But right now, a couple of them gone in front of the Russian embassy, protesting about what's going on in Ukraine conveniently, and then we must praise them as good protesters, good people.
No, Mark.
Come on.
They did more than that. Mark, you're on this program.
What
You hear me
out.
Okay, brother.
Hold on, Mark, hold on. On this very program, we have an issue that we are going to talk about. And that issue had to do with the government's reaction to civil society on all of those who criticized it.
Right.
Article 13 was involved in that forced the government to come out and make some stupid statements. That's why I said a strong communication campaign can be equally powerful. No, not equally. It might not be as powerful as a street protest. That's the be all and end all. But it can do a lot of damage.
All right, we've got to move on.
And the reason the government, the installed regime came out, Adam, installed regime. They're an installed regime. The election is questionable. The elections petitions are still in the court. They're running from that. Let's not run away from that, Adam, right? When people are being persecuted, wrongfully charged, incarcerated, and all these manner of things recently, all because of frivolous allegations of rigged elections. Where were guys like Yog Mahathir and them? They were basically in bed with the PPP, hugging up, calling themselves fighters of democracy and all these manner. They didn't give a damn about people who were being persecuted. 3,000 plus people lost their jobs. We know the majority of those people come from a particular ethnic background. They didn't give a damn about it. You know why the PPP is hurt? You know why they have said something? It is because Yog Mahathir and others who were recently in bed with them came out and conveniently are against them on a particular issue. That is what is hurting towards the PPP, Adam Harris. Don't be fooled, Adam. Adam, do not be fooled.
Yeah. Boy, all you hot tonight, and of course the audience is into it too. I see my countrywoman Dari coming out swinging tonight. Lawrence and Sam and Rhonda and the crew is out tonight. Certainly, it's an issue that runs deep within our community, within the ranks of the opposition supporters. We have to continue to tease these issues out. We have two sides of the issue, and we are trying to talk them through. But let's move on to the reaction of the government. Adam introduced it. The reaction of the government to these civil society organizations that basically just pointed out the infractions of the government. And they come out swinging hard, from the president to the attorney general to Minister Manik Chan, and I think Parag or whoever else. They all came out swinging. And these people are not radicals. They're not people who are known to be aggressively anti-PPP. Ogunseye, why has the government reacted in that way to these civil society organizations, from your standpoint?
I think it's normal PPP political reflexes, and they are on a domination march. But more importantly, I suspect, and I got to say suspect because I really don't know the inner thinking of the PPP. But as a political person, we have to try to read, from outside. Given the PPP political orientation, with the USAID report, with the US president urging, consensus and so forth and so forth, I suspect the PPP read the civil society initiative as part of a wider external initiative to undo the government. And they decide, look, let me nip this thing in the bud. Even if it's not so, it could probably be that on the agenda. And look, we have less to lose by nipping it in the bud and come down with a higher hand, and knowing once they do that, the likelihood is many of the civic society forces maybe, get so frightened that they will begin to withdraw. So I think that might very well be what is driving the PPP. But to put that aside, I think that you have to understand the PPP knows very well that any widening of opposition outside the conventional political parties objectively pose a risk to the PPP survival. And therefore, I think they are committed. They are committed to make sure that kind of expression don't develop and get out of control. And they're operating from the reflexes of strike hard initially so that you wouldn't have to dispense a lot of political energies, okay, to deal with this thing when it grows and become a more important social force, and hence a political force. So I think that those are some of the probably undercurrents in the PPP political strategists approach to the problem, because they must know that in the context of what has been happening around them, that such behavior would not gone unnoticed externally and in the diplomatic community, and obviously it will have a pushback internally. And I think they calculate for that. And in their political judgment, okay, we pay a lesser price by acting now than to allow that phenomena to develop, and we have to take more stronger measures to beat it back. That's my assessment of the behavior.
Ogunseye, I think you're onto something, because the president kept saying agenda, agenda, agenda. Let's go to the journalist, Mo's here, Adam. Adam, did you all ask them to say what agenda these civil society organizations have?
Dr. Hines.
I'm coming to you, Mark.
Dr. Hines, no. While Adam speaks, can I take a quick break to go to the bathroom?
Yes, you can. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah. You know, this is just one of the civil society reactions. There have been others. And Brother Ogun was quite right. The government is thin-skinned, very thin-skinned, can't take any criticisms. For example, one of the things people talking about is Minister Dildo. They don't like that. And when they don't like something, they either shut them out and hope it can go away because they say Guyana is a 7-day wonder, or they make a lot of noise in these cases. And the wide criticism to the NRF, as Brother Ogun also said, hey, they know the international community is, what you call it, is listening. They also know that the international community, and I'm aware that the international community has been talking with them. Hence this nonsense that Irfan keeps saying, I'm for all the people, all the people. But every now and then it comes out that he want nothing to do with PNC and PNC people. Every now and then it slips out. Just a little prod and you hear it coming out. He talks about agenda when this girl from Vice News interviewed Jagdeo and bring up the idea of soup and catch Jagdeo stammering and drinking water. Again, when the people talk about you screwed up with the way you position the NRF legislation and all of that. They come out, they have an agenda, they want to stop development. Well, I can tell you, in the coming weeks and months, there will be a lot of that. Ashni Singh jumped up the other day to criticize a newspaper headline. What the devil was it? Anyhow, he talked about that Amila Falls will not be providing electricity to Berbice and Essequibo. And Ashley jumped up with a stupid reaction, which admitted that Amila will not supply power to Essequibo, but Essequibo will get power from somewhere by 2025. It's that kind of thing that you get, that kind of reaction you get. And, you know, I'm saying a studied communication campaign can be very, very effective. And there will be studied communication campaigns. You know, this little boy, Sherrod Duncan, for example, he's hurting them, and they know it. And other members of the party who got programs like this, reaching thousands of people, hurting them, they know it. And they respond in puerile ways. Jagdeo says Sherrod Duncan is fashioning the the agenda of the PNC. You're right, the word agenda keeps coming up. Agenda, everything, agenda. So civil society got an agenda for criticizing. And more will be happening.
Before I bring Mark in, and I have to say that I do have an agenda. I am making it clear. Mr. Jagdio, Mr. Fanali, I have an agenda, a very serious agenda. But anyhow, let's listen to our friend himself talk about the agenda.
This is facts. I'm not living a fanciful dream. I am here elected as president, and this government is elected to deliver on what we promise. And believe you me, no stumbling block will deny the people of this country the delivery of what we promised and committed to. None whatsoever. I cannot be more clear on this issue. Or some may say the president said more clear. I cannot be clearer on this issue.
No stumbling. I come from the waters, Adam, me and Ogun. You know, because you've been from the other side. Then you hear them thing, no stumbling block. Make your bills. You don't play with those things, no stumbling block. And then before I bring it in, let me get Mark in here.
Forget about Irfan. I think we're giving those guys, or some folks are giving him too much credit. He's a fear cat. Forget about him and no stumbling blocks. They are afraid because the very people who installed them are against them now. He knows that, right? And he knows why as well. But let's get back to this civil society and this Friday the 13th group. Is it Friday the 13th?
Article 13.
Pardon me?
Article 13.
Article 13, sorry. I don't know where I got Friday the 13th from. But
Friday the 13th is a Trinidad story.
Oh, that's I think with Freddy Krueger. Sorry about that. All right. So the guys from Article 13 go out there. We know who the couple of them are, 3 or 4 of them. We know who they are. They go out there and they are described as members of civil society. You speak. You're not a member of civil society. You're radical. You are black pudding man. You are. Kadaki speaks. Kadaki is not a member of civil society. He's a radical. He's this. He's that. Burke speaks. Burke is not a member of civil society. He's a racist radical. He's this, he's that. I'm just giving you the example, and we're falling for this trap. So Sudden or a Benschop, they're all radical. They do this, they do harm to us. That's what the PPP portray. That is what they want to see us as. We are not civil society. We are not professionals in the eyes of the PPP. But a couple of guys from Friday the 13th go out there when it's convenient for them and they protest about Ukraine, ignore all the other sufferings that's happening in the country, and then they are from civil society. Look at how many things that others that they've branded as radicals and racist have been saying about this installed regime. But the guys from Friday the 13th comes out, protest against Ukraine, went out in front of the Pegasus or the Marriott Hotel to do a photo op, a special appearance, and they are civil society. Because why? Because they're not persons of African descent. So only persons who are not of African descent are from civil society. And when African people speak out, they're racist, they're radical, they're this, they're that. They start fire, they send out wanted bulletins, and all these manner of things. They arrest them, every single thing. But they're not going to send the police to go and harass members of Friday the 13th group. They're not going to do that. We know why. And I'm not going to fall for this trap with no Friday the 13th group and so forth. Whilst, yeah, whatever little they do is good. But I'm not going to fall for that trick. It's called a psychological warfare against the people of the opposition. I'm not buying it.
Right. We're running down on time. Let's move quickly to the next issue. And that is this house-to-house registration that started on Monday. And the quarrel now again about what's the best way to get a clean voters list. Are they up to tricks at GCOM again? Adam Harris, I start with you.
Yes. Yes. I learned that all the names that were gathered during the house-to-house registration in 2019 will be removed. All.
Wow.
By the very GCOM, when the party was talking about sanitizing the list, Justice Claddeting said, we are not empowered to remove names from the list. How the devil you can remove, I think it was 200 and something thousand names. How can you remove names now? Somebody said it was a court order. I don't know. I don't recall the court order which said that house-to-house registration was illegal. So you're in a mad scramble. You're going to remove the names. I was one of them who was registered. You're going to remove me name and tell me I got to go back and register, otherwise I can't vote? Madness. Madness. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be part of the continuous registration. Then you go on to say, well, the first-time people should go and get registered. When you are subtracting those names from the house-to-house registration, what is there to prevent you from taking off other people who were legally and legitimately registered? That is confusion. And I would like to have a go at the Guyana Elections Commission. I'm trying to get some of them to answer those questions. But trickery is afoot.
They're up to tricks. And you notice the opposition, Brother Aubrey said that they're against that continuous registration thing. They don't think that that's going to clean up the list, but they're advising people to get registered again, not between a rock and a hard place, right? You're not sure whether you're going to get a new voters list. So you have to tell your people, go ahead with the trickery, just in case. Again, the opposition finding itself there. Anyhow, your take.
I think GCOM's behavior on this matter speaks for itself. I am reliably informed that the opposition commissioners had problems with the house-to-house registration beginning on two grounds. One, that you're starting this registration without GCOM having consensus on how you're going to deal with the bloated list, which everybody, both locally and foreign observers, Carter Center, OAS, everybody who participated in the 2020 election observer team concluded that one of the issues in our elections is this bloated list. And one would have thought that GCOM would have tried to build some consensus. I know there's the argument about the difference between the National Register of Registrants and how the court rule. But we're dealing with politics. In the commission, at least some attempt should have been made to have some consensual agreement on this important issue, but the chair used her strategic vote to knock it down. The next point the opposition raised, I'm told, is that, look, GCOM came into a lot of blows and criticisms for its handling of the 2020 elections. And in the context of the fact that GCOM conducted two previous elections, local government elections, and there was no accusation of rigging. But in the 2020 elections, we had the problems of accusations and crisis. And the opposition commissioners took the position that before we move forward into engaging with exercises for another election, we owe it to ourselves and the country to have an internal review of what went wrong in the 2020 elections. And one would have thought that the PPP and the chair, who is a legal mind, would have seen the sense in such a proposal. But again, she along with the PPP knock it down. Now, when you take those two things together, you're hard pressed to believe that the PPP and those in GCOM, including the chair, they are not committed to no transparent process. They're committed to some form of trickery. But I have a problem. The election, the opposition in the 2020 elections had raised the question of the bloated list. And they were trying to get GCOM to have a new voter list. But the thing went to the court, and the court ruling a certain way. And we went into the elections with the old list. And we saw what happened. Everybody who observed the elections conclude that one of the issues that led to the crisis in 2020 is the bloated list. Now, I am as opposition. I would have called my people out in the streets and to create a crisis around this voter list and this decision to start house-to-house registration in the absence of consensus in GCOM. Opposition has to know what are their red lines. And this argument about, we got to get people on the voter list. When you create a crisis, there will be no house-to-house registration. And when we resume house-to-house registration in the new context, your people will be on the voter list. It is only a problem if you don't want to create a crisis, if you don't want to wage a struggle to win the right to get a proper voter list, then you have to go with a compromise position of if the people must register, because if they register, they're going to be on the voter list. I think that the opposition has to have clear red lines, which is work out with its constituents. And that should be one of the red lines.
And before I bring Mark Benschop in, you read the mind of Brother Yuri. Brother Yuri made the same point, and he was directing his comment to Adam, who obviously is indignant on this issue, and he was saying to Adam that GCOM situation is one of the reasons that there should be mass protests. What do you make of what's happening there at GCOM? I'm just swinging at you tonight.
It's just paving the way again for massive corruption and rigging at GCOM. There has been evidence of rigging right there at GCOM, and what the PPP is doing is paving the way just for that, right? We saw what happened in the 97 elections. It was vitiated by the very PPP person that's it. Sorry, I say PPP person, but
you're going to be sued.
Claudette Singh, Justice retired Claudette Singh, right? The 2001 elections questionable. The 2006 elections is the perception of many folks that it was rigged by the PPP when they stole a seat from the AFC in Region 10 and handed it to Sam Hines, right? In 2011, they attempted to rig the elections again through fake SOPs, and I want their supporters to hear this. Fake SOPs in the 2011 elections when they were about to award the PPP an extra seat that would have given them the majority government. But it was somebody within GCOM that actually brought that attention to Mr. Vincent Alexander and say, hey, Chief, this is what they're doing, right? They were about to rob the nation of a seat by rigging an elections. In 2020, we all understand what happened. It so happened, unfortunately, that those guys who were sleeping in the coalition government got caught with their pants down on elections day. That is what happened. So this whole widespread perception that Mingo did something wrong and the coalition rigged elections, it's a farce. It's false. It is not true. It is the PPP who rigged the elections, and they have mastered that. They have been planning. They have done it. They have executed the real rigging of the 2020 elections, just as they have done in subsequent elections. So this whole thing about the house registration is to remove certain set of people from the list and maybe add Brazilians who are now new in the country, maybe add Venezuelans onto the list. And that is their way now of padding the list by inserting thousands of these other persons onto that list. Now, one of the things, though, that I'm surprised about, right? That when you have those PPP commissioners, whenever a pin drops inside the commission at every meeting and it doesn't go their way, they walk out of that meeting and they call a press conference right away. They hold press conferences. They explain to the people, this is what's happening. This is what is happening in GCOM. So help me God. We have 3 opposition members who sit there and represent the interest of the opposition, not their interest. We haven't heard any press conference from these guys. And now I know them. I know Mr. Charles Corbin, Mr. Donald Trotman, and Mr. Vincent Alexander.
Desmond Trotman.
Yeah, Desmond, right? This is not knocking them personally. It is to say, come out and explain to your people. Don't let Dr. David Hines have to explain that, or Mr. Tacuma Ogunseye or Adam Harris to say that he heard something. Come out, let us hear from our commissioners of the opposition. They're being paid to represent us. Call a press conference. Explain to the nation what the hell is happening at GCOM and the corruption that is taking place there.
And I would love for us to continue, but it's the 8 o'clock hour. It's nice to see a former magistrate, Juliet Holder Allen. She's on here tonight, and I see some new people on tonight. Welcome. Welcome to the family, Politics 101. They say that we are troublemakers, but you be the judge for yourself.
When Magistrate Juliet Holder Allen lost her job because she refused to do the political bidding, did we see Friday the 13th folks them out there talking about the injustice meted out to people like Magistrate Juliet Holder Allen? No, come on. I don't know what's happening. Do we still have an extra hour, or are you going now, David?
No, I'm going, and I'm giving you all 30 seconds, and I'm going to be the chief whip here tonight. Adam, 30 seconds, closing remarks.
Okay. One of the things about the registration that you got to guard against, I am certain that they are going to introduce this vaccination card. If you're not vaccinated, you may not be allowed to enter the registration center. Now, the view is that a lot of Black people ain't registered. So already you got a little problem there. That is something that they have to guard against. You got to be vigilant. Whether you're vaccinated or not, you should be registered. That's my 30 seconds.
30 seconds. You have to turn on Binadering.
Are you here now?
Yes.
I want to say that while I agree with much of what Mark said, I think it's unfair to the commissioners because Vincent Alexander have been explaining these matters in the press and in the media, okay, as they develop. So it is not, even though they probably didn't keep formal press conferences, they have been engaging the press and outlining the situation. I want to conclude by saying that, look, politics is a dynamic thing, and you have to make political decisions based upon the historic moment and the challenges that face you. And in a situation where people say we want elections to be the sole manner in which we change government because, quote unquote, is the democratic way. And if we realize that there are great issues that will affect that democratic exercise as an opposition, you have to have a red line. And in the context of Guyana, the voter list has to be the opposition red line. And regardless of what it takes to get a clean list, you have to be committed and dispense political energies on that. You have to, that you have to know where you have to shift gear. And too long we play this game with the PPP, and the PPP have always been outwitting us on this game.
Mark Benschop, 29 seconds.
Yeah, I realize that Mr. Tacuma Ogunseye got 1 minute. Dr. Hunt, well, these are both gentlemen, Adam and Mr. Ogunseye. But let me say this to you and your listeners, sir. 30 seconds. Those in the opposition need to get their priorities straight, not just from the leadership standpoint, but support base as well, right? That you would find people have excuses about pandemic, COVID-19, to go out and protest about something close to them, right? But they wouldn't do that. But thousands of them would jump and go and wind up and dance up at some dirty something, Spinkan or whatever it is, dance, wind up, go on. Thousands of them. That is how the PPP is brainwashing mainly the support base of the coalition, right? Nobody's concerned about pandemic. Nobody's concerned about that, but they're enjoying themselves. But you call a protest tomorrow morning. We who are part of civil society too, not Friday the 13th, these same people are not going to come out. And quickly to the leadership of the opposition, get your priorities straight. Stop the bickering. Stop the name talking. Stop the pulling down of each other. Stop it. It doesn't look good. It divides your support base. God bless you.
Mark Benschop, Tacuma Ogunseye, Adam Harris. I want to join this morning on that program. Put it another way. I said the opposition must pick the fights that it could get traction from. My brothers here tonight, you've got to get your priorities straight. We're all on the same page. I want to thank you all for coming on, strengthening this mobilization that we're doing, because yes, Mr. President, I do have an agenda. My agenda is to keep our people mobilized, keep them informed, keep them battle ready for when that opening comes. I'm clear about that, right? And who don't like it? That's your business. Tomorrow night, I'm going to have Mr. Dr. Vincent Adams coming on to speak truth to power, to tell us all that they've been hiding and doing behind the scenes with the oil story. So tomorrow night, we're talking oil. There it is, Dr. Vincent Adams, former EPA head and AFC member, is going to be on, and we're going to be talking about oversight of our oil and gas industry. Tomorrow morning on Bostonian Morning Time, Clinton Conway is going to be on to talk about corruption in the police force. So join Kodaki tomorrow morning, and then tomorrow night, Dr. Vince Adams. You all will agree with me that tonight we were roaring like the roaring lion, and that's the way it has to be if we are going to bring our country back to a place where we can sit and talk with each other about our future. To all those who have contributed to Politics 101 in direct ways, I want to thank you for your contributions, your donations. They are very, 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 very important to helping us, because we also broadcast on Channel 9. So that when we're finished, when the programs are finished here on Facebook, they're rebroadcasted live on Channel 9. And of course, we've got to foot that bill so that those who don't have Facebook can see the program. Again, Adam Harris, veteran journalist. Tacuma Ogunseye, WPA veteran. and Mark Benschop, who's perhaps the pioneer of what we are doing here, this online story, alternative media. Mark been doing it long before some of us were born, certainly when I was in short pants. Good night, and I'll see you all tomorrow night.
Please help keep Politics 101 on social media and broadcast television. If you are in North America, please donate via Cash App or PayPal.
If you are in Guyana and the Caribbean and don't have access to Cash App and PayPal, email your pledge to dhines6106@aol.com and we will direct you how to get your donation to us. Thank you in advance for your donation.